Here are all of the different ways to name an angle in geometry. So here's the example that we'll be doing in this video. We need to name this angle. So there are three main ways to name an angle, and let's go over them one at a time. So the first way to name an angle, and possibly the easiest, is to just use the vertex. So the vertex of an angle is basically just the corner of the angle. So this point right here, where the angle like hinges, I guess, that would be called the vertex of the angle. So to name an angle, we use the angle symbol, which just looks like an angle, and then we put our name after it. So if we're using the vertex method of it, then we just figure out what the letter is of the vertex, which is A, and we just name it that. So we can just call this angle A. So there we go. That is a valid name for this angle. Now, this is possibly the easiest way to name an angle, but sometimes that doesn't really work because let's say you had another angle coming like this, then you have two angles with a vertex of A. So you need to basically explain which one you're using. So another popular method for naming an angle is to use the three letters method. So to name this angle, you just need to imagine yourself drawing the angle. So if you were to draw this, you would start like up here or something. You would draw it coming down here and then draw it over here. So to name the angle, you just need to list off the order of the letters that you trace the angle at. So you started here at C, right? So you would make C the first letter. Then you came down here to A, so A is the second letter, and then you came over here and stopped at B, so B is the third letter. And it doesn't matter which way you do it, you could have also done it the other way. So you could have started here at B, came down over here to A, and then came up here to C. And if you were to follow the letters that you did there, you started at B, you came over to A, and then you finally stopped at C. So angle BAC is another name that works. But the important thing here is that the vertex, which is A, is always the letter in the middle. You can't have A at the beginning or A at the end because you're basically just tracing the angle. Now, the final way to name an angle, and this is helpful for like differentiating between angles, like if you had two of them with the letter A, what you can do is you can just give them numbers. So for example, this angle here, if I wanted to not just call them both angle A, I could just put the number 1 inside this one and the number 2 inside this one. Then in this case, if I wanted to name this angle with A, B, and C, I would just call it angle 1. And that's because there's a 1 inside. So you can name an angle a number as long as you put the number inside the angle you're talking about to like reference it. So now you know all three ways to name angles in geometry. But the reason that naming angles is so important is because you're going to be doing a lot of stuff with angles and even like drawing them. And those are called constructions. And if you haven't done constructions yet in geometry, they're a really unique thing in math. It's almost kind of like art. So if you want to learn how to do your first construction, you can watch this video right here. And as always, if you have any questions about this video, go ahead and leave it in the comments and I'll be sure to answer your question. Thanks for watching.